Hi to everybody joining us today for the fifth installment of the 2023 Family Friday webinars. This week, we will be diving into all things residence life. So it looks like we've got the majority of our folks that have wanted to come in. The numbers are still creeping up, but we need to go ahead and get started so we have plenty of time for questions and answers and all those things. We're joined today by our Director of Housing and Residence Life, Harriet Kandell, and the Assistant Director of Residence Life is Elaina Hill. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to them, but I'll be behind the scenes. We'll be working with questions and answers as we move along, and enjoy.
Hopefully everyone can see our screen. We have a couple of slides just to kind of guide us through our conversation today. We're going to go through these slides and kind of touch on community, move-in, some amenities in the halls, kind of some things on what to bring and not to bring to campus as you get ready to move in. And then at the end, we'll have time for questions and answers. As Josie said, my name is Harriet Kandell. I'm the Director of Residence Life and Housing here. I've been at William & Mary for the last 5 years. So we're going to get started. So community is a huge part of the work that we do on campus here in Residence Life. And so we really do think that students living on the campus their first 2 years really sets them up for success, but also allows them to be connected to all the resources that they may need during those first 2 years. And we've also shown that students who are more involved show to be happier and more satisfied with their college experience as a whole. And just it allows them to build community and connect easier with other students, maybe going through similar or different experiences. We also have several layers of staffing within Residence Life. And so on move-in day, you're going to interact with the resident assistants as you actually drive through our check-in line. And Elaina and I will also be out there with staff to help with any complications that arise maybe. But then you'll also arrive to your student's building. And as you're moving to the building, you'll see the resident assistants moving within the halls and helping answer questions and things like that. RAs are student staff, so they are also students themselves. And so they have gone through very similar move-in processes and lived in our communities. They are kind of the front line of people that if your student has a question during their move-in process or throughout the academic year, they're kind of the first person that they're going to connect with within their community. And then we actually have 5 live-in professional area directors that oversee our 5 residential areas that are broken down throughout campus. And our area directors vary on level of experience. We have some that have been here almost 20 years, and we have some that started a month ago, but come from previous institutions with several years of background and experience also. So that is kind of, and then we also have our head residents, and our head residents, excuse me, are split up into kind of 2 different categories. We have community directors that also help supervise the RAs with the area directors. And then we have head residents that more advise the RAs and the area director. And so those are different levels of staffing that you'll see during your move-in process.
Yeah, and so kind of to build on what Harriet just shared when we talk about community, I mean, you know, we've all been a part of various communities throughout our lives. And when we think about community, we really think about, you know, like our level of engagement and what does that look like and how are we making meaning of this time together. And, you know, yes, our residence halls are where students are going to lay their heads at night and they are going to hopefully get a good night's sleep and, you know, do their homework and study and do all the great things. But it is also a place where they build relationships. They connect with their RA, their head staff, their area director, back in 1972, President Thomas Graves, at that time, he really brought in a new era of residential living through what he called the policy of self-determination. And that basically stipulated that, hey, again, we are all a part of this community. We all have shared responsibility for making this community what it is. And if you can imagine back in 1972, it was pretty, you know, cutting edge for the president to say that, but also to say, these students don't have a curfew. They can come and go as they please. In fact, the community should dictate how that looks, right? And the community should dictate as a shared body of responsibility what guest visitation looks like, and quiet hours and all of these things. And so we have honored that since 1972, and have brought it into 2022, 2023. And when we think about self-determination and we think about your students coming in and grappling with those essential questions, like, who do I want to be as a part of a community, right? Who am I as a community member? What values do I have? And how are they shared amongst the other people living with me? And so we see that through our community agreement process. That's going to happen during orientation with your students in the RA, where they decide some of those things and they talk through that, and they even consider what should quiet hours be, and what kind of community building initiatives should we partake in, and what does that look like to you, right? And kind of what do you need from us to be successful this year? And so that's the community agreement conversation that happens. We have 2 community meetings specifically to talk about those things, and it becomes a continued conversation throughout the year. Shared living agreement expectations is essentially a community agreement for roommates, and your students should see in the tribe guide some information around what does that mean, and some prompting questions so that they can reflect and be prepared to have conversations with not only the roommate, but again, the others living on the floor. Along with that, we have community councils, again, student-led bodies of governance to help decide what the building, so beyond the floor, beyond the room, what is that building or that area going to look like, and how are we going to build those relationships with each other throughout our hall. And that's also where hall dues come in. We have students opt in. That'll also be a part of the tribe guide, and also a part of some of the stuff that you'll get upon moving in and arriving to campus, where the funding really does set us up for having those different programs, those different events and socials and gathering. And so through all of that, again, like Harriet said, it is research proven that living on campus is a high impact practice that leads to success in college. And so through self-determination and having these conversations and being a part of this experience in the residence hall, we really hope to see your students build resilience and flourish and learn to grapple with some harder conversations, but ultimately come out with a better understanding of who they are and what they value.
And if you're more interested in self-determination and some of the history on it, it's also on our website under Residence Life. And so if you want to check that out, you can. With that, we move into talking about move-in. It's actually really hard to believe that it is almost a month out from now. So we are busy prepping and getting ready for move-in. But what that means is that your student should have already received their move-in appointment information. If they have not, they should be emailing myroom@wm.edu inquiring why they have not received that, because if they have an assignment, they have received information on how to schedule their move-in appointment. Every student has to have a move-in appointment in order to move in on move-in day. We do this because it helps us kind of flow in the traffic into campus and help with move-in around the halls so that all the halls don't back up with everyone trying to move in all at the same time, and to kind of just give some space. With that, once you've made a move-in appointment, about a week before move-in, students will get a notification of check your housing portal again, because then they'll be able to see their QR code. Their QR code is what we will scan during the check-in move-in line through the housing portal. And what that does is that checks them in, and then that tells us that they have picked up their room key and they are good to go to move into the hall. Once you've moved through our move-in line, that also includes orientation, check-in also. You get to see OAs as you move through the line. and then proceed to a color-coded route. The color-coded routes are also listed on STEP's website, and so you can see all of those move-in pieces. We will also send the information again to students closer to move-in of like, now that you have your move-in appointment and your QR code, don't forget these are the routes that you can take. And so all that information is coming. But again, they should have been able to make a move-in appointment. If they have made a move-in appointment time and you realize that that time is not going to work and they need to go back in and change their move-in time, they can absolutely do that. Typically about 24 hours before move-in, they are no longer able to make that adjustment. And that is more for card access reasons so that we can make sure that everyone has the right access. If something changes, you can just call our office or call my room or email my room and let them know that something has come up and that you need to change the appointment, and our office staff will help assist with that. So keep that in mind as you plan for move-in. Move-in is officially August 24th. So like I said, almost a month exactly from now. But we are busy prepping the halls and getting ready for students to move in.
And so when we think about amenities, all rooms are going to include a bed. Like I said, we like our students to sleep in their rooms with a mattress is a twin XL. So you keep that in mind when you go to the JCPenney to get the bed sheets and all of that. You will get a chest of drawers. Exactly how that looks varies from building to building, but there will be drawers in a chest for the things, a closet or a wardrobe, again, depending on the area, a desk, because again, we also value their academic success and we want them to study and have a space to do so, and obviously a chair because you got to sit in something in order to properly be at your desk. We have cable television outlets and service provided. We have internet that can be wired, and we have wireless routers, of course, throughout the buildings. In order to access their building, they are going to use their ID. That Harriet, they get it at move-in, or have they?
They do. So providing your student has taken all the steps that they need to prior to arrival, so uploading their picture to Tribe Card Services and following those steps, we will actually hand you your student's ID and their room key at move-in. The only reason that they would not get their ID at move-in is if they have not taken the steps to complete it by the set deadline by Tribe Card Services, and that is a part of their Tribe Guide checklist to do.
Perfect. And so so ID accessed into the building. We have the card readers at each door, and then as Harriet just said, they will also receive their key, which is the keyed room access. We value security and safety because if you don't feel safe or secure, we don't really have any foundation upon which to build community. And so it is very important that when we talk to students and when you talk with your students, to emphasize the necessity of keeping the door locked when they're not in the room.
So another thing that students and parents wonder about is laundry. So laundry is if it is not directly in the building, it is close by, depending on where your student is assigned. And then it varies depending on locations within buildings, but all of that is listed on our website. And so if students are curious, they can look there, but also know that once they move in and have their first floor meetings, the RAs are going to share where all the locations are and the easiest and best times to go maybe are. They are able to, the nice thing about our laundry service is that once they start a load of laundry, they can actually monitor that laundry back in their rooms. The service will actually send them an email and it will tell them about 5 or 10 minutes prior, and it will tell them your laundry is almost done. And then again, once the laundry is done, it will tell them your laundry is done and you should come pick it up. We highly encourage that. And then they can also preload their Tribe Card card so that they have money on their card, so then they can just swipe their card and then pay for their laundry at that point. It is $2 per load and dry cycle. And so if that's something that you're wanting to think about, there is also that. Also with amenities, so depending again on if your student is in a suite style or in a traditional building, if they're in a traditional building and that it's a shared bathroom on the floor, custodial does come in throughout the week daily to clean those areas. They're also taking care of all of the common areas and kitchens within the halls and those bathrooms. If your student is in a suite styled bathroom, they are taking care of the common areas and the kitchens, but they are not taking care of the bathrooms because the bathrooms are internal to your students' rooms. And so it is on your student and their suite mates and roommate to take care of that bathroom. If they're wanting to have university provided toilet paper, we actually do keep that in the duty offices. And so students are able to go to their duty offices to pick that up. But if they prefer their own, they can bring their own. And so just keeping that in mind, we also recommend that they bring their own cleaning supplies for their rooms because we do not provide cleaning supplies within the duty offices. We do have some general items like a vacuum or a mop or a dustpan and brush, but it really will depend on the community and what that community council has provided for the area. So if your student is really gung-ho about cleaning supplies, that is something that they can bring up to their community council and decide there.
So the question on everybody's mind usually is, what am I packing? And so when we think about, again, the specific assignment that your student has, and the various things that come along with it, as Harriet said, if they have a suite bathroom, they might need some different things than someone with a traditional style hall communal bathroom. But again, we want to go JCPenney. We want to get those bed sheets, pillowcases for the XL, because our mattresses are, mattress toppers are very popular and highly recommended to make it just a little more comfy when you get in there. Blankets, obviously, comforters, your pillow, so you have something to lay your head on. Storage items, so thinking about like how are we hanging our clothes, and and when we think about what to pack, don't worry about having everything in the car when you get there. We do have a Target, we have a Walmart, we have a JCPenney, all within, a reasonable distance. So once you get in the space, you're like, oh, like, we actually need some hangers, because like we realize we have this closet and this would be more helpful. So like, don't fret over that too much. But storage items is always helpful. When we think about bathroom, obviously you want some towels, some hand towels, again, locally purchased at our JCPenney down the hall or down the road. Toothbrush, you should brush twice a day, floss once a day. All of the other like hygienic items that your student usually uses, bath caddies and shower shoes, especially for the communal traditional hall bathrooms, is highly recommended. And students will see that and see the value in all of that. For cleaning, you want to have a laundry basket to do that laundry in that communal space like Harry was talking about. You do want things to keep your space tidy, which would, obviously include disinfecting wipes, dusting, brooms, paper towels, however your student usually maintains their space, or how you have imparted the wisdom to help them maintain space. Those items would also be helpful. And then as we move along, obviously electronics, so thinking about those things, headphones are very important, especially when thinking about living in a space with someone else, and wanting to keep noise at a minimum, or at least noise pollution, right? Small refrigerators, we go up to 4 cubic feet for that, if they want to keep some items cool. A microwave is allowed, small vacuum, fans, especially for those that don't, those spaces that do not have air conditioning. And then when we think again about like the communal kitchen area, or in our apartment style halls, the kitchen, again, those cleaning supplies and things. And then different tools. So like flashlights are helpful in the event of a severe thunderstorm if the electricity goes out. Extra batteries for that. If they have a bike, they want to bring a bike lock is very important. And then obviously those documents that they want to have on hand as they go through the year, especially thinking about if they end up getting a job on campus or nearby campus, having that passport or those I-9 documents could be helpful. Our vaccine cards, we don't leave home without them anymore. So keeping those handy and other things of that nature.
I will touch on that, and this is a question that comes up often, is that we get asked if each resident of the room can have a fridge. Yes, they can. So if your student wants their own mini fridge, then they can, and their roommate can bring their own. It's really up to them. So just know that is okay to do. And I would also stress surge protectors, and you'll see on our next slide, we'll tell you not to bring extension cords because they are a fire hazard for us. So we really stress surge protectors, and also going on Amazon and just buying the ones that have the longer cords are really nice, because then that helps them kind of be able to set up their room the way they want to without using extension cords. So Elaina kind of touched on things that they can bring. I'm going to touch on things that we should probably leave at home and that are policy violations. And so candles, even as decorations, are not allowed in the halls. Extension cords, like I said, they are a fire hazard. Curtains that are not fire rated. So we're completely fine with students bringing curtains if they would like, being that our rooms we have blinds that are in the rooms. And so if students want to bring a curtain rod and curtains to make it feel more like home or to block out more light, they can absolutely do that. They just have to make sure that they are fire rated curtains. And then incenses also are not allowed in the halls. Halogen lamps, any items that require open flames should be left at home. This also includes scented plugins, especially the ones that you plug in and the thing like liquid sits on top or melts. Those are also not allowed in the halls. And then we have an extensive inclusive list that will be available in our resource guide. Our current resource guide for next year is not published yet, but it will be soon. But last year's is still published, and so you can see everything that is there right now. And then items that cannot be stored in the room, but can be stored in those common area kitchens, or if you're if you're a transfer student and you're living in an apartment next year, things that can be stored in those internal kitchens. So appliances such as rice cookers, hot plates, toaster ovens, and things like that cannot be kept in your student's room. But we do allow items in the kitchen or apartment kitchens such as bread makers, crock pots, rice cookers, hot plates, George Foreman grills, blenders, electric skillets, and things like that. They just can't have them or store them in the room for fire safety reasons. And a big item that we're seeing an increase on that students love, their electric charged bikes, scooters, skateboards, hoverboards, any items similar to that. We know students love them. They love using them to get around campus. But if your student decides to bring that to campus, know that they cannot store those in the residence halls or charge them within the halls, because they are a fire policy issue because of the battery. Now, campus is working on providing charge and storage stations throughout campus, but obviously if all 4,000 plus students bring their electric scooters and bikes, there's not going to be enough storage across campus for that. And so just as you're packing things and thinking about what to bring, have some conversations about what makes sense for your student. I will say, like, if a student is found to have an electric bike, scooter, skateboard, hoverboard, whatever it is in their room, they would be documented and it would go through CVRP because of the fire hazard. And just because we've been seeing an increase across the US in those fires that are just happening from those batteries just exploding unknowing. So we just want to try and avoid as much as we can. Obviously, if your student has been approved by Student Accessibility Services for an accommodation for whatever that item is, then that has been approved and we would know that that item's been approved. And so just keep that in mind too. So obviously they're going to move in and it's going to feel really overwhelming for everyone involved, for students and parents. I know it's hard to say goodbye at drop off. So students are going to ask kind of, now I moved in, now what? And so your student is going to move in. Y'all are going to unpack that car. You're going to move everything up into the room and start rearranging the room. And depending on when the roommate comes, rearranging the room again. And they're going to have some time to unpack, but then that evening, orientation events then start for them. And so students really jump right into it. And then orientation goes Thursday evening onwards. And so if you are planning to stay, there are parent sessions that next morning on Friday morning. But just know that your student is going to hit the ground running as soon as they move in and kind of semi get settled in. And then they jump right into joining their community through orientation, and their orientation aides are going to come and pick them up for those things. They're actually going to come right to the hall and gather them all and take them all off to the next session. Again, resources right within the hall are going to be the resident assistants and then the head residents. And then as I said, there are 5 area director live-in professional staff members that live within the areas on campus. There is at least 1 professional staff member on call at all times. And so if there is a true emergency, know that our staff is being alerted to that and as for a resource. And then the orientation aides also are in the halls helping out during move-in and taking them through all those orientation sessions. And so there'll be a lot going on and it will be hard to say goodbye, but they're also going to transition into community and really start exploring what it means to be here at William and Mary. Okay, I think we have made it to the end. So now it is time for us to answer questions and things like that. Our office is located once you get to campus, and this is more after move-in if you're ever curious where we're at, but we're located in the Campus Living Center on 230 Gooch Drive. So if you're in the Sadler Center, we're actually behind the Sadler Center, just down the hill. And so really close for students whenever they need us. We have 2 different emails. So our myroom@wm.edu email is a really good resource if students have questions or you have questions about rooms, about room changes, about room assignments, housing contracts, anything really related to the room itself or move-in appointment. And then living@wm.edu is more about facilities and housing, work orders. And so if your student has put in a work order, because that is also something that they are able to do. So if you move in and you find that something is not the way it should be, students will be able to put a work order in. And when they actually move in and check in, they get an automatic email from us that lists out all of these resources for them, including the work order link and phone number. And so that will be in that email also. But if students ever need to follow up on a work order, they're always able to email living@wm.edu and just kind of ask, hey, I got a work order in and I'm just following up to see where it's at. This is another resource for them to email our office. So that is that. I'm going to stop sharing there and jump to questions. All right. So one of the questions is for any people coming from long distance away, is there an easy way to ship belongings ahead of time? So yes, I want to say after August 1st, your student will actually be able to see what we call their CSU mailbox, essentially, which is their mailing address. After August 1st, they should be able to log into the housing portal, and on the right side of the housing portal, they'll actually be able to see their mailing address, and it will tell them their box number essentially, and then the address for them to start shipping items to. So also if you've moved in and they realize that they forgot their favorite shirt at home, you'll be able to also mail that home after they've moved in. Or I know students love those care packages. And so if you want to send a care package afterwards, they will have that address to share with you. So, but if you want it ahead of time, you'll have to have your student log in and share that address with you so you can send them that item. Let's see. If they have a room with a window AC, is that removed? So any room that has an AC window unit, those remain through the entire academic year. So they would not be removed. So if your student does have that, it will stay there the entire year. they are permanently installed. Let's see. So dining dollars, there's a question about dining dollars being used towards laundry. So no, but I'm blanking on what they're called, but you can load the dining dollars and laundry money at the same time. And I cannot remember what it's called. But if you go to Tribe Card Services, you're able to load the money there. I am blanking on it. Elaina, do you know what it's called?
I am
I'm
also
blanking.
blanking.
But it is not the dining dollars itself. It's a separate line essentially. But you're able to load virtually for your student too. Yeah. So all residence rooms have overhead lighting. That was a question we got. So every residence hall room is overhead lighting. So you can bring, we highly recommend bringing lamps just to make it more homier, in my opinion, especially if you want a different light effect. I feel like that in my office, I have lots of lamps instead of using the overhead light all the time. So it really is more what they want to use in their room. Along with the lighting question, are LED lights allowed in the rooms? It depends on the kind we're talking about. If it is the LED strip lighting, no, we don't allow that in the residence halls on the walls because they over time damage the walls significantly, and we don't want students to be charged for that damage. But if it's a standalone LED light, then yes, they can have it. But if it's attaching it to something or around the room, we would say no. Someone asked about specific furniture in their rooms. We don't send that information to students. If you go to our website, you'll see online, if you know what building your student is assigned to, you can actually visit the individual building and look at the page, and you'll be able to see what is provided in that room and the rough estimate of those room measurements also.
Bedding sizes, that is a twin XL. Again, going to your local JCPenney's and purchasing those XL sheets are really going to be the way to go. Question about laundry machines taking liquid detergent or pods. They take both, and they are energy efficient machines. So that is always good to know. We do not, I think, so their question was, are there bike share stations? There are not bike share stations, but there are bike racks for students to secure their own bikes too. And they can also register their bikes with WMPD also. So that is also an option. Elaina, is there questions you want to answer? I know, they are coming in. I think it would be a good thing to talk about Dorms Direct, Harriet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you are the more knowledgeable other than me.
So Dorms Direct is an option that you can actually rent several items from, and so such as lofts. So you cannot bring your own personal loft because of liability reasons. We don't allow personal lofts, but if your student wants a loft, they are able to rent those through Dorms Direct. Along with other items, I believe they provide futons, they provide mini fridge microwave combos. The nice thing about Dorms Direct is that you are not the one having to lug it into the building and set it up. It is here upon arrival. And so if you followed the steps and ordered it ahead of time, Dorms Direct will actually come and set it up in the room prior to your student's arrival. And then at the end of the year, they'll come back and take it all away. And so I do know parents really like that. And so that they're not having to lug the fridges and the microwaves and the lofts up the stairs. it's a break on you all, but it is a great solution if that's something you don't want to own a mini fridge for the next decade. I'm pretty sure my personal fridge from college is still floating around my parents' house years from decades ago. So if it's something you don't want to hold on to forever, it's definitely an option to use through Dorms Direct. Let's see. Do students need to leave the residence hall after move-in time? Nope. So once you have unpacked your car within, I think we say 30 minutes to unload your car. Once you get everything up, you can start unpacking, you can come and go. It's really that they need to be back in time for that first orientation kickoff event. And they'll have an orientation schedule sent to them ahead of time. I believe it's already available potentially on STEP's website. But that is where they'll see that timeline, but they do have time to unpack unless you're the last move-in time of the day for whatever reason. So there may be less time for you, but if you're one of the appointments that is early morning, you essentially have most of the day to kind of get settled in. Let's see.
And Harriet, tell me if I'm wrong, but if you just want like those little platform bed risers, that go on each of the feet of the bed, that's okay.
Yes, those are okay. Yes.
So if you just want a little bit of a but not necessarily a complete loft, yes, those are definitely okay. And tell me if I'm wrong. I've only been here a year, so I'm still learning. Harriet has a few years on me. But also, if we wanted to just raise the bed, there are a couple of knobs in each of those posts, right? That they could.
It depends on the building.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yes.
Depends on the building.
Yeah.
So you can adjust some of the beds depending on the building. Yep.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Definitely recommend bringing a little rug for the rooms. They are tile flooring for the most part. And so anything that makes it just a little homier, but also the rugs actually insulate the noise a little bit. So their downstairs neighbors, if they're on anything beyond the first floor, will for sure appreciate it.
Yeah. Once you move in, there was a question about parking on move-in day. Once you have unloaded your vehicle, you'll be directed where you can park, and it will vary depending on where your student's building is. And so as you move in and unload the vehicle, they'll direct you either to our parking deck on campus or to a different parking lot throughout campus. It will really just depends on where your student has moved into. It is a good question to ask, though. There was a question, let's see. There are, just so you all know, there are lots and lots of questions, and I don't think we'll get through all of them. And so if we don't get through all of them, know that you can always email my room at wm.edu if we don't get to your question. So there was a question about for move-in, is it a 15-minute check-in at Kaplan Arena and then go to the actual room? So yes. So that 15-minute check-in window really is you making your way through the drive-through check-in line, your students getting their QR code with our staff, them getting their packets of information, their key and their ID, and then you'll move on to the residence hall and then to the unload zone, unload the vehicle within 30 minutes, and then move the vehicle to where it's designated parking on campus, depending on what building you're in. Something to also know, don't arrive 30 minutes early to your check-in time because you'll be diverted out of the check-in line if you were there early. We try to be really strict about that just because we are trying to prevent backup on campus and just keeping things rolling smoothly. And so show up at your time, but don't come an hour or 2 hours earlier because you'll be directed out of the line. So just keep that in mind as you get ready for move-in.
And Harriet, what's the last move-in time of the day?
I want to say the last move-in appointment is like 5:30, 5:45.
Yeah, before 6.
Yep, before 6, before orientation. So
yes,
but most students will probably be moved in before then. So if something happens, because this does happen, you're traveling to campus and something happens, whether a family emergency or we all know, depending where you're coming from, you get stuck in traffic and traffic is backed up and you know you're going to miss your move-in appointment, just send an email to my room at wm.edu letting them know like, hey, I got stuck in traffic. and I'm going to miss my move-in time, we'll adjust it. If it's going to impact to the point where it's after our move-in time, after 6 p.m., just let us know that before, and we'll adjust the time and have an alternative move-in option for you for that day, that evening.
Students can for sure bring TVs. I have learned through this question and answer forum that there is wireless cable. I am sorry, I am not someone to watch TV, nor do I have a cable subscription. I am an old person like that, but it is wired cable access for those TVs, and lounges do, for the most part, have TVs. But again, that's something that if there is not one in a lounge, where your student could request that through community council, and community council could purchase that depending on the conversation.
Trying to scan through all the questions because some of them are duplicates. Let's see.
Now, Harriet, could you address a couple? It seems we have quite a few of student athletes coming on earlier. Who should they reach out to answer some of their questions? We've got 2 or 3 of those.
So if your student has been approved for an early arrival, they'll get communication from our office with, hey, here's your check-in time and procedure. But also athletics knows when those move-in times are happening because we've worked with them to set up those times. And so those communications will be coming out here shortly, because I know some are arriving literally in the next week. And so they'll get communication depending on if your student is here for preseason. They may be, they will move into preseason housing, and then they will actually move to their academic housing assignment a few weeks later. And they get all of that information communicated to them by our office in the coming days.
Thanks, Harriet.
Yeah. Let's see. Lots of questions. Does the laundry price of $2 for a load and $2 for a dry include detergent? It does not. We do not provide detergent, and part of that is because we don't know if your student's going to be allergic to the detergent provided or not. So we recommend students bringing their own. I do know that sometimes students just leave their shared community detergent in the laundry rooms, and that is up to them as a community. But they will want to bring their own laundry detergent or fabric softeners or whatever they're using for laundry. Are there areas to charge bike scooters outside? The university is working on those and trying to install those at this time. I don't know if they'll be up and running by fall. I hope so. We've seen some kind of appear, but I don't know if they're activated yet. But there are going to be some areas around campus where students can charge / store their scooter bikes. But again, we can't guarantee that there'll be space for them because, again, it depends on how many students bring those to campus. So just keep that in mind because they can't be within the residence halls.
A question about what sort of carrying device is recommended for keys and IDs. It really is choose your own adventure. Students find different ways that work for them. But we do see a lanyard with an ID case attached with a key ring, very popular. Also, putting it on the back of their phones. Now, so you have the little thing, and there is a company called Key Purse, that has an ID, and a little slot for a key and like a silicone, attachment to a phone. But again, really, it's choose your own venture and really finding out what works best for your student.
There was a question about, will there be staff or student, if there are staff that will help with move-in? We do not have staff that can help with move-in. So it really is up to your student and your helpers. And so if your helpers is bringing family, that's perfectly fine. We will say that if you are coming through the check-in line and then have family in another car that's come to help, we ask them not to go through the check-in line, just because that could potentially back up the line. So you and your student can go through the check-in line in your vehicle, and then your other vehicle can meet you at the building to help unload and get moved in. But we do not have volunteers or staff available to help with move-in.
And we also don't have those huge bins that you might see at different institutions. And that's mostly because not every space has the capacity to have a bin go up and down and an elevator to support that. So please keep that in mind when you're thinking about how we are transporting things from the car to the room.
There was a question about, are bugs an issue? That really depends. We will get calls about bugs, and then we actually send staff out to evaluate and check rooms. And sometimes we find that it is the cleanliness of the room, and so keeping that in mind. But sometimes we do live in a very wooded area. I live in Williamsburg also, and I actually, pest control actually called me today to confirm that they're coming to spray my house tomorrow. And so we do get bugs in Williamsburg. However, if your student notices something, they are able to call. And again, this information is all provided when they move in on how to submit work orders, call pest control and all that. But they are able to submit a ticket and a request for pest control to come. Pest control will require them to be at the room so that they can be let into the room, and then they'll be able to spray the areas that need to be sprayed. But that is a service that we provide through the university. But I always recommend to students, make sure that you are cleaning your room regularly so that you can avoid some of those issues happening in the room. There was a question about moving furniture around in rooms. So all assigned university furniture has to remain in the assigned room. It cannot be moved out of the room. You can't take that desk chair home. Things have to stay within the assigned room. And so if you're in a suite style living situation, you cannot put all of the beds into one room and then create the other room as a living room, because those rooms were not coded to have multiple people in, and fire code issues. And so if you're in a suite, you are in a suite, and your room furniture stays in yours and the other stays in the other. And so but as you move in, just make sure that the furniture is remaining in the rooms. If our staff sees furniture walking out of the building, we'll probably stop and chat and say, hey, where is the bed frame going? And try to figure out where it goes back. So yes, keep that in mind. Can you use command strips? You can use command strips. We do see students use those for string lights, for posters, pictures and things. We just recommend that students be careful when they're removing those command strips at the end of the academic year, but they can use command strips within the halls. Not all. So this is a question about furniture, about desks in the rooms. Not all of the desks have, like you saw in that picture, a hutch. They don't all have those. It depends on the building and the building style, if there are hutches or not. And so we do see students bring their own kind of hutch style bookcase that sit on the desks for if they have that want or need. See. Let's see. trying to see, we've answered quite a lot of these.
I'm seeing a lot of questions geared toward parent orientation, things like that. If you want to send those questions specific to families@wm.edu, we're still busy planning. We'll be happy to try and get those answers out to you guys as fast as possible. But I think that would be the most direct way to get you taken care of.
I've seen a couple of questions about locks and doors and things. So all students will receive room keys. We ensure that all keys are returned, and then do lock changes throughout the summer. If we don't get all the keys back, we replace those keys and locks in the doors. There was some questions about if you can secure putting your own chain on the door. No, you cannot put your own locks and chains on the doors. And part of that is fire code and safety for the university. Also, this is probably a question to answer, is if your student loses their key, we hope that they don't, we will actually recore the room and then provide new keys to your student and their roommate. It is an expense to them depending on where they're living. I think it's roughly $60 to $80 for that replacement. If they lock themselves out, which does also occur and happen sometimes, if they lock themselves out once, it is a complimentary lockout, and hopefully they only do it once. If they lock themselves out more than once throughout the academic year, there is a $40 lock re-entry fee for them that's posted to their student account. But hopefully they will hold on to those keys depending on how they choose to take their key and carry their key with them.
If your child is interested in being an RA, as I see in the Q&A session, we do recommend that they not only get to know their RA and kind of hear about their experience and kind of what that looks like. We have information sessions usually around October. The application process starts around that same time, October, November. It's looked a little different just about every year. In fact, we just hired a new assistant director for training and selection. We are very excited to welcome him here, and so I'm sure he will add his own little magic to the process. But definitely encourage your students to to learn directly from their RA, from their head staff, the area director. They could even come by the campus living center and see me or Harriet, and we'd be happy to talk to them about that potential.
Let's see. Is it okay to have your dog with you on a leash during move-in? As much as we would love to have your furry friends come with you, unfortunately, we do not allow animals in the halls unless it's been approved for a student need, or if it is a service animal. Thank you. If it's a service animal and it has the service animal information, then you are good to go. But if it is just your family pet wanting to come for the ride to say goodbye, we ask you not to bring the animal. And that is also just because we don't know other students' backgrounds, and if they are allergic to animals or for whatever reason, we just ask that you leave your family pets at home unless it's a service animal.
We have about 5 minutes left in the hour, and I know that we still have a ton of questions.
Yes.
We do have a large group of pathways questions. Okay. I don't know if that can be addressed at this time, or do you have a better spot for them to send their questions to?
For pathway students, I'm trying to find some of the pathway questions really quick. So if you're a pathway student, providing you've been approved for a drop off, you actually can arrive prior. So on the day that I think how it works is that when you get here for the pathways program, you're able to come temporarily pick up your room key and drop off your belongings in your room. And when I say drop off, it really means you're opening the door and you're putting all your items in the room and then leaving. And so then you bring the key back to us. I think there's a it's about an hour or so that you can come pick up your key, drop the items off, and then return the key, and then head off onto Pathways. And then when you come back after Pathways, we do have a separate check-in process that will be shared with you all prior to that arrival. So more information will come on that. Part of the reason you may have not gotten the full information yet is that it may be that we're verifying that your room will be ready for Pathway drop-off. And so that information is coming to you, because during the summer, our buildings are utilized for multiple things, such as summer housing, summer research housing, summer camps and conferences. But then we also have buildings offline that we're just renovating, whether that's fixing things throughout the summer, painting the building, things like that. And so we want to make sure that your room is ready for your occupancy when you get here. But so more information will be coming, and Pathways will also communicate those move-in information to you. Other questions that we may have missed, Josie?
I think that took care of, a larger amount of pathway stuff. There's still more. I don't think we can handle all of these. Again, we're close to 100 questions at this point still. So again, encourage everyone to submit your questions to either Living or Res Life, depending on, which, or My Room, I mean, depending on the topic. You can also send your questions to the families website, Dean of Students. They all end up getting funneled to where we need them to. Yeah. So I know we could make this 3 or 4 hours long. We would probably still not be able to answer all the questions.
All right. This is a question. I saw a couple of those drop, just really quickly. As far as garbage being taking out your trash or recycling, each residential area does have individual dumpsters and recycling. And so you'll be able to take those things out during move-in, and recycle all those cardboard boxes we know we're going to have during move-in. But that's also where students typically will drop their items off during their regular year. We will also place some extra dumpsters around campus, just because we know it will overflow very quickly with move-in, but those are spread out throughout campus. All right. Josie.
All right. Okay. Yes, I think we're there. I know, I think we're there. And this question actually pertains to what I'm getting ready to say, is that this recording will be uploaded to YouTube. We've got to do a couple of pieces of editing. Should look for it, I would say, about Tuesday or Wednesday at the absolute latest. But that's going to join the rest of our recordings from all of our other webinars we've had over the past few weeks. So again, thank you everyone for joining us today. And I believe we've got another webinar in a couple of weeks. So we'll hope to see you then. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes,
and we look forward to seeing you all soon.
Right.